Welcome to the Music Makers Cookbook, the podcast that helps independent artists cook up recipes for success in the music industry. I'm Sean.
I'm Brandon.
How you doing today, Brandon?
I'm not too bad. How about yourself, Sean?
I'm doing pretty all right.
Good.
Just finished a move, getting back in the swing of things. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Really let my studio get into disrepair from moving all this stuff around because I've just not been
It's
able to
not
keep
in
it clean.
disrepair. I was just there yesterday.
It's in disrepair. You didn't go in the back room very long.
No, I didn't.
It's in disrepair. I was making acoustic panels, so there's wood.
Oh, right.
Freaking everywhere, sawdust, all this stuff. It's not clean.
Yeah, you've been a busy man, Sean.
Yeah, I have.
Been a busy bee.
Yeah, I have. On top of doing all that stuff, we're prepping all these podcast episodes and things to talk about. If you're just new to this, we started a new kind of system where we structure and batch kind of our episodes so we can focus on doing more research beforehand, which leads to really interesting episodes like today, which I'm really excited to get into. But before we do that, we do have our weekly community question that we like to ask at the beginning of the episodes, give our answer to it, and then leave your answer to it in the comments down below, because we'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And this one for this week is, if you could make any addition or change to Spotify or Apple Music to make it better, what would it be?
Oh, man. I have a couple. I'm going to focus on Spotify for me. And I have a couple for that. First of all, they need to come out with their new lossless audio thing that they're doing, if they haven't already.
Yeah, it's been in the works since 2023?
It's been a really long time. And I thought that it was going to come out last year, and it didn't. As far as I know personally, I don't use Spotify. I'm an Apple Music guy.
Yeah. Why?
I get it cheaper. That's literally the only reason why.
But it's a tax write-off.
And Apple,
you.
it could be. It
is for me.
It could be.
I use it for work.
I use it a lot in my car, so I don't know what the statute of limitations is there. And plus Apple Music has lossless audio. So because you can listen to stuff in 48K, 24-bit. So
Gotcha.
and it has like the little badge under there that'll actually tell you what you're listening, and which is super nice. Super nice. I want Spotify to obviously come out with their lossless program by now. That would be really nice. I think they're way behind the curve compared to Tidal, on their audio quality, and I'm sure it's in the works. I'm sure it's a lot more complicated than I'm making it seem. Right?
Yeah, because Tidal's been doing that since when did they come out again? It wasn't like 2008 or 12?
Yeah, it was
a long time.
A long time ago.
Yeah, I never actually used the service.
Tidal is really nice. It's really nice. I've only used their service for a few months at a time with like special promotions just to check it out and see how it was. It's a little bit, it's not as fluid as Spotify is, not many things are as fluid as Spotify. Spotify has that UI system down pat. Like, it looks great. It functions really well.
And all the features they have been adding with like connecting an artist to their fan base, like the storefront that's set up with it, ticket sales through their page on Spotify, the end of year wraps where they can record a short thank you video that their fans can view. That stuff's really cool that no other platform does, which if you look back at our social media episode, Brandon called like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that Spotify was going to end up being a social media platform. And it's getting closer and closer every day.
And that's actually my next feature. Just go with the full feed now. Give us a feed of stuff. And it might be great for discovery purposes. Maybe you give us a discovery feed. Maybe you give us a what your friends are listening to feed. But which they already do. You can already see what your friends are listening to, but like, let's be able to comment and share, and interact with each other on it. Let's go social media. If we're at the door, you might as well just go through it, Just
like a small portion on like an artist profile where they can answer, like they can set up for like quick AMAs or converse with their fan base or that'd be pretty cool.
I think that'd be awesome.
It'd be interesting on how they'd figure out a way to curate it so it's not just like a bunch of people reaching out like to the artists. Like, it has to be like what they choose to respond to. I feel,
and I imagine that comes with a monthly subscription to your favorite artists or something. Of course it'll be monetized, so don't be expecting maybe a free service on the other things. But if you are a super fan or a patron or supporter that we'll talk about today, then maybe this might be right up your alley, know. And this is just another great way to interact with your fan base and cultivate a fan base, but also your friends as well. So that way you can discover new music, because Spotify is making it increasingly harder to discover new music on it, which is unfortunate. But
which is both good and bad, because there's like way more music than ever before. So there's got to be some way to kind of,
it's like a slight
curate, but also like it needs to be open for that new discovery.
Exactly.
We're in an interesting period right now.
It's a very interesting time, and I'm sure AI will totally just change everything what I just said and make everything irrelevant that I just said. But Sean, what about you? What is the feature that on any of these platforms that you want to see?
On Apple Music, I'm just going to list a very basic, simple one. I wish they showed you the play count.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you are just an Apple Music user and you don't go on Spotify, you can see the Spotify songs play counts without having a account, without having a subscription to it. But what it allows artists to do is look at what songs are trending, what are the most popular songs on this album or your album or things at an easy glance.
Yeah.
To then think about, okay, well, this aspect of it seems to be working. Let's do more of that. And this aspect doesn't seem to be working. Let's do less of that. It allows you to, looking at those numbers, it allows you to see what works and what doesn't and curate your own career. And then for Spotify, man, there's a feature that they actually used to have that I wish they brought back. Yeah.
What was that?
Pay the artists.
Oh, yeah. That'd be nice.
Yeah, if you don't know, we made a short about it. If you don't know, in late 2023, they changed their account settings so that if you get less than 1,000 plays in your song within a year, you don't get any royalties on a song on the Spotify platform. Which, less than 1,000 in the grand scheme of things, it's not a whole lot, but it's still enough. It's still something. And those small things, it's not nothing. You should get some sort of recourse for your art, for your music. And just because it's less than 1,000, it still means you got some plays. Some people are on their platform using their service.
It's not insignificant.
It's not insignificant.
Yeah.
It's small in the grand scheme of things, 1,000, but it's not insignificant. So I wish I kind of want them to bring that back.
Yeah, I mean,
especially now that the rates are just going up and they had their whole year where they made profit.
I was going to say they're routinely the lowest paying distribution service as far as I know. And now they just made it even harder, for artists to get paid. And I don't know exactly what it's going to take. I mean, let's take Apple Music, for example. Even if Apple Music was a loss leader for Apple, Apple still has Apple. Everything else that they do, they're going to make it up in other places. Let's say Microsoft launched something. Take the Xbox, for example. Xbox has never been a moneymaker for Microsoft. It's always been a loss leader. Every single time that they drop an Xbox, it's a loss leader. But they know that it brings people to their platform, right?
So Apple ecosystem.
Exactly. Yeah. So Apple Music has that on the flip side. So Spotify doesn't necessarily have that on the flip side. As far as I know, I don't know any other assets that they have that would help them, justify Spotify as being a loss leader and paying the artists that are on it. I have no idea. Obviously, it's really complicated.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of like, I think how I kind of see it a little bit.
That's true. They don't have that, but they do have market share.
They do have market share. That's for damn sure. And they
it.
get paid. Like, I'm not trying to make an excuse for Spotify at all because they need to pay their artists. They need to. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts? What are things that you would add to these platforms? Some interesting ideas that we talked about, but if you have any other ones or even just you agree with anything that we said, please let us know. But yeah, that kind of engagement, really shows us that you like listening to our episode. That communication lets us know that you're here and listening, and you're not just passively consuming. You're actually engaging with us. You're a fan of us, which we appreciate. And so
that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Damn it. I thought you were going to pass it off. That's okay. That's okay.
Usually I do. I usually do.
Anyways. That's on me. That's exactly what we're talking about today, Sean, is just hit the microphone. What types of fans that you have. And, when you think of a fan, oftentimes you think of a fan, right?
Yep.
What does that mean? It's just a catch-all word for somebody that supports you and your music. But there are types of fans out there that you can break this down into a little bit more of a microscopic look at things.
Yeah.
The ones that we're going to be talking about today, the categories that we're talking about today, comes from the book Create, Produce, Consume by David Bruer? I don't know. We do this every week now with
text. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, David Bruer. We'll say. And he breaks down fans in his chapter of reception, and he categorizes them in 5 different ways. I'm going to go over the 5 different ways just real quick. That's just the names, and then we'll go into each one, I think, after that.
Cool.
So there are casual listeners, there are dedicated fans, there are super fans, patrons and supporters, and collectors and archivists. And that's how he describes each type of fan and what their characteristics are and how to reach those fans in the best way. And maybe how you can break down the fans of your music and determine the best way to engage with them or even convert them to the next step, right?
Yeah.
And I know that sounds really businessy and terrible, but
it is. It's the music business.
It's the music business.
Yep.
It's the music business.
Which is something that we're going to really tackle at the end of just the importance of if without a listener being a consumer and putting effort and money and time into what you are creating, there is no business. There is no recoupment of all the effort and time you put into it. So you need to look at your fan base, say, okay, where are they? Where do I need them to go? Am I in the right area?
Yep.
And move them to a different step. If it is mostly casual, how can you get people more engaged?
Yep.
If they're not engaging, that's on you.
Yep.
Here's a quick pause to remind you that if you're enjoying the insights of today's episode, please click subscribe or follow us so that you're always in the loop as to what's happening at the Music Makers Cookbook.
And if you're loving what we're cooking up, a rating or review helps us reach more independent artists just like you. Thank you for listening to Music Makers Cookbook.
Now back to the show. So let's dive into it.
Let's do it. I'm going to do an honorable mention first. Curveball.
Yep.
I just want to say this up front. Your family and friends are not necessarily your target audience. Well, I'm going to get that out of the way right now because that's like very baseline, right? Those are the first people we go to whenever we need support. We go to our family and friends because they already support us relationship-wise by having a relationship with them, right?
Yeah.
So our natural instinct is to go to our warmest market, our hot market, and go, hey, I'm doing music. You should buy this because I'm doing it. That's bad. You don't want to extort your family or friends. That's basically what it is. You're basically begging for, hey, you should support me because I'm me, right? You need to earn that support somehow. Like you need to go out and find fans that support you through your music because they like your music and they like you, as a musician.
Hopefully, if they're your friends.
Hopefully.
They're your friends.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Your friends will support you, but most likely not monetarily. Most likely, unless like they do really support your craft.
They may be your target fan.
Yeah, they might be. Yeah.
But
flip side,
you can't count on that. You cannot count on that. And once again, because of that, if they're not your target audience, if they're not a true, like an actual fan in your music, and you go to them for not only support, but if you go for them for feedback and their opinion on things you are creating, your art, and they're not your fan base, you're not going to get real, authentic and effective feedback from that. So that's another reason why you need to be careful. Not just you can't count on them for support, but necessarily you can't count on them for actual effective feedback when you go on this journey of making a living in the industry.
Yeah, that's a great way to frame it too. Yeah. So I wanted to mention that first thing foremost because we're going to get that out of the way, especially before we get to our next category, which is casual listeners.
Yeah.
So this is described as, I'm just going to read it straight from here. People who consume. Slow down. Casual listeners.
a little bit too much coffee.
Right. Casual listeners are people who consume music passively, often through streaming services, radio, or background listening. They may not actively follow specific artists, but engage with popular or recommended content. Okay. I'm sure you could think of a few people who are casual listeners in your life. I'm a casual listener during very specific artists, right?
Yeah, I would say we are all casual listeners
100%.
to a degree.
Yep, 100%.
And some of it's not even by choice.
Right.
Like if you're going to a grocery store and there's music in the background, you're like, oh, this is a good song.
That's casual
listening.
Yep. So like if you have the radio on in the car and you're just driving and you're not even paying attention to the radio or like, you're like, this song's pretty cool, whatever. And you're a casual listener. You might not necessarily go out and seek more from the artist, or you might not monetarily support the artist, but you are engaging in casual listening. It's obviously the most common form of listener.
Oh yeah.
Because like Sean said, we are all casual listeners at some point, right? So yeah, this one's bare minimum.
Yeah.
This one's bare minimum. Anybody that comes across you in any way, shape, or form is a casual listener. And it's very hard sometimes to navigate from casual listener to dedicated fan, right? But before we go there, I just want to say that conversion is a little bit more tough, because you have to make it engaging to pull a casual listener out of the casual state.
Yes, because no matter what, this is the foundational step. Even if someone really enjoys your music and they listen to you on Spotify or on Apple Music, or they look at your shorts when you post them or things like that, even if they're taking those steps to being in communication, it's still the casual listener phase because they're not taking that next step to directly or in a meaningful way financially support you. By listening to you, like that adds to the count. You could get royalties from it, things like that. If you cross the 1,000 mark, and like supporting and sharing, it gets it to other people. So there is a benefit to it, but that is not necessarily like there's more benefit than just directly monetarily. But they are still in the casual fan, the casual listener phase until that next step is produced. But everyone starts off as a casual listening fan.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are bands I absolutely love that I've never bought any of their merchandise. I don't have anything physical. I've never gone to see them live, but I listen to music all the time.
Yes.
So I would still be in that casual listener
absolutely.
phase.
Absolutely. And, people become casual listeners in all different ways too, right? So it's like somebody recommended this artist to check out, and now they're listening to him, kind of regularly. Like, that's great. Yeah. You have Spotify, who is great at exposing people and becoming casual listeners of a certain artist because of their playlist curation. So they figure out an algorithm where they put people in front of you where they're like, oh, they're going to spend more time on my platform because they want to listen to this artist, right? That's their incentive, right? Is to keep Spotify and put people in front of you that you think you might listen to more routinely. And that could be a bridge to a more dedicated fan at some point, right? But a lot of the time is you're gonna have to get out there and expose yourself a little bit more to these casual listeners to try to convert them further. That means playing a lot of shows. That means doing a lot of meet and greets. That means doing interviews. That means doing just anything in front of them to get their attention and be like, oh wow, I really like the way this guy acts, and I like his music. Now, then you got something kind of going on. You have some momentum building there.
That's a good point. Like the whole effort thing. Yeah. Not necessarily, it does take effort to go from one to the next, but even at this very foundational mark, it does take effort to get casual listeners. You have to make a good song that people want to come back and listen to. Yeah, you have to make a good song. You have to promote it and get it out there so people are aware of it. If you are making music and you don't even have casual listeners, it's not a quality issue, it's a awareness issue. And once again, that falls on you. So playing shows, putting submitting it to playlists, submitting it to radio, like college radio stations, putting yourself out there to be interviewed on podcasts or shows or different things like that. Getting yourself out there is the necessary step to build awareness. And that's what you said. From there, you can take extra steps to move them along the line.
Yeah. I'm working with somebody named Steve right now, and his music is great. He has great music, and he's really big on collaborations at the moment, especially around in the local area.
And those are huge.
And those are massive because that exposes you to their fan base, whoever might be on it, right? And that's what we've talked about on the phone
before. And them to yours is generally beneficial.
It's a mutual agreement.
Mutually beneficial. Generally, didn't I?
No, you're good. I knew what you meant. Mutually beneficial, agreement right there. And just a really unique way to kind of approach it. And you can approach it in all different sorts of ways. But like Sean said, it takes effort to still do this part. Even if it's a more passive casual listener than it is an active casual listener. I'm sure we could break that down further, with the casual listener thing. But this one is probably the biggest category we'll go over. And now as we kind of move down into the funnel, because now how we have the structure is kind of in a funnel. So now the deeper you go, the more narrow the funnel gets and the more niche it gets with the fans and how we describe them.
Yeah. So what's the next step in the funnel?
That leads us to dedicated fans. And I'm going to read this. The next step is dedicated fans. These listeners go beyond casual consumption, following specific artists, attending concerts, purchasing music or merchandise, and engaging with an artist's work on a deeper level. Now we're starting to exchange some bucks here, Sean. There's monetary gains being made here.
On a general level, there's most of these, there's still a lot of that casual, passive kind of support there, but then it is interspersed with direct support.
Can I give an example of that passive support or casual support versus the more dedicated fan right now?
Go for it.
Go to one of your favorite band's concerts. I'm sure they're going to be a headliner. All the openers are casual listener bands for now, unless people are going there to listen, right? Let's say you want to go see Deftones. They're headlining the show, okay? Then you have 3 bands under that. You are a casual listener of the bands under it if you don't know them or are very unfamiliar with their work. You're not necessarily paying to go see them. You're paying to go see Deftones, right? So you kind of become a casual listener right there. There's also monetary stuff being exchanged because they are making money off of it. So a little bit of murky waters right here, but it's actually an interesting example and a case that this becomes complicated, right? This becomes very complicated, and you need to know where the money's coming from and the intention behind it, So that's at a big level, though. I just want to put that out there, though. That is the case, and it happens at local shows too, right?
Yep, that's a good point. In that kind of setting, they're the opening bands do have monetary involvement and they do benefit from you pay the ticket for the main band, but the intention of the purchase was for the lead. If that's who you went to see. If you went to see one of the opening bands, then the headliners then benefiting from you being a dedicated fan to one of the opening bands, which is, once again, when you brought up features and working together with other artists and collaborations, it gets you to both fan bases, but also any sort of monetary benefit that one gets can directly affect the other person as well. So like if you are an artist that has another artist feature and one of their fans then buys that song, you directly benefit monetarily through the splits of the purchase of that, even though the dedicated fan wasn't there for you. So there's a way to make income from casual listeners, but that is not their intention. That's where the main separation is. Like, they're not going there to see you, but you can still make money from it.
Yeah. Great point. Great point. Yeah, this is where it becomes a little bit more complicated, but if you are in the casual listener kind of stage, with a lot of people, this is how you become more, or this is how you gain more dedicated fans, is by being on these tickets or on these bills, or like we said, like maybe collaborating with higher artists, or doing interviews with big publications, right? This is how you become the next step of having more dedicated fans, and then the dedicated fans coming to your show to support you directly, and then obviously that funnels down on the set list. And
dedicated fans are this is where we get into the basis of what your music business is going to be actually built upon. If there's no dedicated fan, if it's all casual listeners, then there is no business. Because there is no direct financial support, because we live in a society that uses money to trade and
it's an economy.
To verify and to exchange value. So until you get to the phase of dedicated fans, you don't have an audio career. And that's why this is important. That's why this is really important.
This is very important.
So you want to get as many casual listeners to this phase as possible.
Yeah, totally agree. Great point. That's a bar. So go back and listen to that again if you need to, because that's a very important point. So that kind of takes us to the next step of fans, and that would be number 3, which is super fans. So super fans are highly invested individuals who form strong emotional connections with artists. They might participate in fan clubs, create content such as fan art or covers, and actively promote the artist within their communities. Taylor Swift? Just saying. We did go a couple episodes without bringing her up. We did. But now we're right back to it. Because
some things never change.
Right. Because now
some things never change.
Because now when you mention the term Swiftie, these are super fans. Super fans. And now, and by the way, we said funnel, right? And Taylor Swift's funnel is very, very large on this fan perspective, right? Because there's a lot of casual listeners, there's a lot of dedicated fans, and there's a fuckload of super fans. There's a ton of super fans. And she cultivates this fan base super well. She is super
engaging with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and she is validating all the effort that they're putting into it. And directly from all that time and effort she put into acknowledging and encouraging this aspect of our fan base, she's now directly and immensely benefiting from, because we're humans. Community and socialization is a huge part of what we live for. It's a huge pillar of what being a human is. Not into psychological, but it's having a fan base, having a group of other people who are dedicated to this artist, to this music, that puts it into a personality, something that you can form groups around of and feel that bond of attachment, and you can converse with others, and it's just a huge part of that human experience. And if you can create and validate and take the time and effort necessary to grow this, to actually grow it, now you've got true dedication. That level of dedication quite often lasts the lifetime of the super fan. So that's something that once formed, you can continue to see benefits from for decades, throughout your entire career, even past your career, because as you mentioned, a super fan, they start to create content for you. They start to go out of their way to recommend you to others. So not only is it casual, like, oh, this thing popped on. No, there is a person that is directly recommending you and what you do to another person. And whenever we recommended things from friends and family and people that we care about, we are much more likely to listen and partake with the person in this thing. So it just rapidly expands the growth and awareness of what you're doing, which we said at the beginning. It's oftentimes not whether it's good or bad, it's the awareness of it. Because even really bad, quote unquote, it's subjective, but even really bad songs, quote unquote, it can get huge because a lot of people are aware of it. It becomes a cultural thing. This is like a small scale cultural thing. With these super fans, that level of dedication, that level of community, that camaraderie that is formed amongst that group. And
no, I think you make a great point, and I want to make a point too, where it's like a lot of the time where you can kind of see these kind of case studies is with someone like Lady Gaga, you know, for example. And what I mean by that is that she's gone on to do movies, you know, and this is where I feel like a lot of artists like this who came up just in music in general, start to kind of pivot in other avenues. You know, we saw with Tupac, who went to go do movies, you know, we see it with Lady Gaga, like I said, who went to go do movies. Elvis did movies, you know, and those fans typically follow, right?
Yeah, they're able to do that because that super fan, they're able to follow.
Yep. So this part is huge. Super fans are very. Getting to a super fan point is just amazing, and it's extremely hard to do, and it's a long game, right? This isn't a short game thing. You might have some super fans trickle in every now and again, but this is a really longevity based thing. Seriously, it takes a while.
Let's not sugarcoat it. It takes a while, like you said, and it takes a lot of time. It does. It takes a lot of money on your end. You have to invest into it to have resources for these people to partake in. It takes a lot of music. It takes forums and like places for them to communicate. If they don't form it themselves, most of the time they do. But you can kind of push people in the right direction by having these events that allow people, this specific kind of fan, to get in contact with each other. Especially if what you're doing is a largely online or less in person kind of thing. If you host like AMAs or VIP digital concerts where every song you communicate with people or things like that, the people who are your target audience for that are super fans. And now you're inviting all of your super fans into one thread, into one location, into one place where they're going to talk afterwards. Or talk during it. Like, oh yeah, I like that. It's like, oh yeah, they performed that really well. I like how they changed the words for that, for the opening of this song, because it shows they're doing this. Like, they're going to really, they're with their people at that point. So if you have super fans, but they don't have like a core, but if you have super fans, but you don't have a collection of them for them to then form their own kind of community, doing things like that to bring them together and move that along, that is an important step to take from dedicated to super. Get these like-minded, get this target audience, get this fan base together for them to then talk about their love, their appreciation amongst themselves.
Great. That was a great way to describe it. Absolutely. Move on to the next one. Number 4, patrons and supporters. So patrons and supporters are fans who contribute financially beyond just purchasing music, such as crowdfunding platforms like Patreon or direct support initiatives, helping artists sustain their careers independently. So this one was really big during COVID, right? We saw a lot of patrons and supporters that would go support their favorite artists because, well, they couldn't make money touring, right? They couldn't go to the studio necessarily, although some did. They couldn't go to the studio and record music. Nothing was happening. We saw this happen firsthand in 2020. And this is when it was super, super popular. But now that we're out of 2020, you can go back out to concerts and everything. But now some of these artists have Patreons where they give you exclusive content, right? Where you should not be able to see it in other places. That's the goal, right? Now, if you do, it probably got leaked, right? But this is meant for your eyes only if you're paying for the subscription, because you are supporting them beyond their music. You want to see the process of the music. You want to see their get ready with me in the morning. You want to see everything. You know, you want to see their day-to-day because you like them as a person. Goes beyond music.
That is an approach. Getting that personal level of connection through these kind of gated services like a Patreon, where it's not just here's the music, it's here's me as an artist. You can partake in the artist. I'm gonna take a step back real quick, if you don't mind. Like things like Patreon, where people can subscribe directly to what the artist is producing, comes from being a patron. And historically, patrons were like the main backer, the main patrons were the main backer of artists, of musicians, of people throughout history to directly support them to create their art. So like for example, when Michelangelo painted the Sistine Chapel, he was paid to do it by a patron who supported him financially over the course of time it took to create that art. And a lot of times patron is like it's a support. It's not just you're buying the art, it is a support of the artist. Because as I mentioned, like the patron was supporting him, house, food, like making sure of all of his living things while he did that job, which is where that next step, which leads to, that patron supporter. So it's just like a brief history of it.
No,
I find it interesting.
I think that was super interesting.
Yeah. So the same thing, these patron supporters are people who want to go above and beyond just buying the art. They want to support you as an artist. And as you mentioned, you can put things that get that personal connection to these people because that's a large part of what they want. They want to have that kind of connection directly with the artist, but not all of them do. Other things you can supply are like behind the scenes, demo takes, rough tracks, earlier takes, especially if you're recording a full band at once and you get like 10 takes and like the 9th one is the one on the album. You can submit the take 2 or whatnot. I was just listening to Fleetwood Mac's Rumors Deluxe that has a bunch of their early takes and different versions of the songs on it, and that's stuff that patrons really like. And I'm not going to go too far into that any further because it kind of leads into the fifth person, but these kinds of things you can then supply to these people through services like Patreon, which is the biggest one that I'm aware of.
Same.
That allows them to pay not just for a product, but for using artists. And a lot of times when people are at that level, they don't even necessarily care if they get anything back. They truly just love what you did. And usually they love what you do because of what your work has done to affect them in their life. Either help them get through a really hard time or help them understand something about themselves to improve their quality of life or got them to meet the love of their life and start a new relationship. Like there are deeply personal things that can result from your music, and these people form a deep connection, and they tie that deep connection with you and your music, so they just want to support you beyond it because you had an impact on them. They want to have an impact on you. So in these situations, sometimes you don't even need to give them anything. Some people subscribe to Patreons just for that giving purpose. They don't even want anything back. They don't want anything back.
Just for the love of it.
So if you've got a large enough fan base, even if you don't want to take the extra effort or like put something out every 1 or 2 or 3 or a year or very sporadically put stuff out, it doesn't hurt to give these kinds of fans a way to support you.
Exactly.
I think one of the worst things you can do is when you have this fan base, if you are at this level, you have them, but you don't give them the opportunity to support you in that way. They want to support you in that way. So if you don't have a Patreon or a way for these people to support you, create it now. Because they want to. And by not giving them the ability to, you're actually hurting their relationship with you because they're not able to do what they want to do.
I mean, let's face it, like if you don't have it up, they will never support you because they cannot support you, right? So you might as well have it up and have the opportunity to support you if this is where they're at in the relationship, right?
And this goes for all the other layers. I mean, imagine when you just started, or if you're just starting your career, or if you've been through your career, go back to when you just started. When artists just start and they have all these songs written, but they don't have anything recorded or out there, and they play shows to get people's awareness, and they're out there performing, how many times did people come up to you and say, "Hey man, I love your music. Where can I find you? Where can I listen? What can I buy? Do you have any CDs? Do you have any t-shirts?" "No, I don't have anything." You just missed out on not just a direct monetary, not just down the line support, but you just missed out on a strong connection with that person because you weren't able to give them what they want. And they want to get a shirt from you because they enjoyed their experience and they want to remember it. They want to get the CD. They want to listen to you because your music spoke to them in a way. And if you don't have that, one, you're not benefiting monetarily, but two, you are not able to fully let them support you in a way they want, which is honestly like, the true gift is giving. They want to give to you. They want you to take their money at that point. And not giving them the ability for you to take it is doing them a disservice. And
I know that sounds terrible.
It does. It
does sound
weird.
terrible.
Not being able to take their money is sometimes the worst thing you can do. Which is weird.
I want to just say this. Newsflash, this shit takes money. Everything takes money. If you are in the United States, I can't speak for other countries, but we are here in the United States. This shit takes money at every single step. You need money.
Yep.
I'm so sorry. That is just what it is, right? You need to be able to make that money somehow. And this is a great way to do it. And by the way, I want to mention too real quick before we go, really like, just take their money. There is integrity here. You have to be, you have to have integrity at this stage, because you can break trust and you can go down a bad spiral real damn quick. Do not just be ripping people off, right? Now, some people do just want to donate just because they want to. That's perfect. But if you do like a Patreon or something, and people do want something in return, deliver it. Just deliver it, and make sure it's decent, and make sure it's good. You know?
Be upfront and don't overpromise. Say
you.
like,
That's
hey, I don't give you guys anything from this Patreon.
Too.
This is just for people who want to support me, just to support me. If you're open with that, and you say in the description, like, I sometimes pop on once every other month to do AMAs. Sometimes I don't. Just set the expectation so they know what they're getting.
Love that.
Same thing like
transparency.
Like I just mentioned, if someone comes to a show and they want to buy a CD, you need to give them a CD of, and you performed it as a full band. You have to give them something that's like representative of what they just witnessed. If you're like, I don't have a studio album, but I have a CD that's got all my demo recordings on it, you could sell them that, but you have to verbalize like, hey, this is a demo CD. I don't have anything from a studio fully produced yet, but I have a demo CD. Would you be interested in buying that? Then they can decide yes or no. But if they say, hey man, I want a CD, and you say, oh yeah, here's a CD, $10, and they give you $10, and they get in their car, or they get home and they pop it in and listen to it, and they're like, wait a minute, this is just a demo. This isn't what I was expecting. Along the way, the integrity comes from setting that expectation.
Yes, love it. That was a perfect way to say it, because that's exactly where the integrity is born. Exactly, right up front. So make sure you have that in your Patreon if you're going to do that.
There are some artists that do the complete opposite, but they market it like their integrity is they verbally express that there is no integrity. So like you can build that kind of character. This is where the art becomes super fun. Like you can twist it in whichever way you want.
Totally, But
even when setting the expectation, if the expectation is that their expectations aren't going to be met, that becomes its own kind of thing. It can get so fun. It can get so interesting.
You can do it anti, right? It's like, if you want to hear from me less, you got to pay me more. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm just going to be blown up as shit all the time.
And that's unique. That's more interesting. That becomes part of a branding thing. So we're not going to go any further into that.
Because that's a rabbit hole. But like it's also, like you said, that's a good way to put it though, because like that's another creative thing that you can do and use this to your advantage, you know? And like I said, using it to your advantage, like that sounds terrible, but you have to do something to make money. You have to.
And once again, you are not making them buy these things. You're not making them unless you are like actually manipulating or doing these like directly involved things to get them. Just by offering it, you're not making them do anything.
It's just sitting there on your website.
By doing a concert where they have to pay tickets, unless you're guilt tripping everybody that you know to come. If someone wants to buy a ticket to see you perform, that's what they want to do. If somebody wants to buy a seat, that's what they want to do. You're not making them do anything. You're just allowing them to do what they want to do.
Exactly. Love it. That was a really good one. Good one.
What's the final kind of
final one? The final one. We have arrived to number 5, collectors and archivists. Collectors and archivists are fans who focus on acquiring physical or rare editions of music memorabilia or historical recordings. Their engagement is often driven by deep appreciation for the artist's work in a tangible form.
People like stuff.
People like a lot of stuff. And now that we enter the digital age, it gets a little bit more interesting with how we archive stuff. But it still is done. And I'm sure there are super fans all over the world and very dedicated Patreons and supporters and collectors and archivists that have stuff put up all over the room of their favorite artists, because that's just the way that it goes. Now, I know I'm going to use like an example back in the day, but let's take the Rolling Stones, for example. The Rolling Stones had a lot of memorabilia. Everybody has seen the Rolling Stones, the tongue.
Yeah, the tongue. Yeah.
And, that's plastered everywhere. I'm sure there were newspaper clippings that people have taken out of the newspaper and put in a scrapbook of stuff where they're keeping tabs on this happened then. That's what we're talking about. That's the type of fan that is a dedicated, lifelong fan that you have to really royally fuck up for them not to be fans anymore, right? And these are the types of people that we're talking about. And this one is the most long-term fan ever. You will not get this day one. This is the most dedicated. They will either die before you or they will outlive you.
They're only gonna do one of the two options.
You know, well, I know, but they will always be fans of you.
Yes.
Right. Either up until the very end, or they will be fans after you pass. So this one is huge.
Yeah.
And it's so niche.
And there's multiple different ways you can go about it to kind of support a collector fan base. Once again, if they exist, then you have to give them something to take advantage of to do that, because collectors are constantly looking for those rare, those cool things, those things that become statement pieces and talking points in their homes and in their basements and living rooms and on the walls and in their basement and even at work on their desks. They want those statement pieces, so that way when their friends come over, they can say like, "Hey man, see this record? Like this is a 1 in 200 pressing based on the original masters." Or look at the signed album I got. Yeah, this was signed at the concert. I was there. I got the ticket with it. Like that's the part that they like. And that physical connection to it, something they can see, they can touch, is that direct connection to the item. That's just kind of the collector's mentality. So let's take a step back and if you have these collectors and you're not serving them, once again, like anything below, you're missing out and they're missing out on fulfilling that kind of connection they want with you as they want. So going back to Taylor Swift, she does this incredibly well.
Yes, she does.
Any of her albums, you can go to Target and buy for what, $25-$30? Yep. But every now and then she releases really specific records where there's only 500 of them made. It got a specific color. They have like this extra bonus track on the end, or just different packaging, or it's these 2 albums in one packet, or these 3 albums in this packet. And always limited. And people love these things because it becomes a talking point, and it connects directly to that, not only the dedicated fan, but the super fan especially, because then they can talk to their friends who are also super fans. Say, hey, I got this. This is how dedicated I am. I'm a super fan. I got one of the 500 or one of the 5,000 limited edition purple and green vinyls that were produced. It becomes a thing of pride. And that's why this is the last, because once people go through all of those layers, this is kind of a way it ends up. And it kind of ties into a patron supporter as well, because if someone's buying things that are specifically made and manufactured for a collector's market, they don't do it because they needed to listen, like for the record example, just because it's the easiest one for me to think of, the easiest one to visually
I got an example too.
Someone's not buying another copy of your record in pink because they want to listen to that record in pink.
Right.
No, they just say, oh, this is the way I can support this person.
Although it does sound more pink. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
It's an audio joke.
This is a way for them to give you money and get something in return, especially if you don't have a Patreon set up. So a lot of times patrons, supporters who want to support you but don't have an outlet to, will kind of turn into collectors because that's the only way they know of to give you money without necessarily being able to just give you money.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a weird way to put it.
And like Sean's describing this is like, these things take a lot of time to build up, right? You're not going to be able to go out and make specific acoustic guitars for each album that Taylor Swift has and have people buy them from you. You will sink yourself in $1,000 of that way. But she did that, right? So she had an acoustic guitar made by, I believe it was Epiphone, for each album. And it had the album cover on the guitar and you could go buy it. And it was like $500 for a guitar that, would hang up on your wall forever and you'd be able to use it as a talking point, right? Let's take Kurt Cobain's guitar, for example, that has been auctioned off how many godly amounts of times, right? People got their hands on it somehow. And,
or like Jack White's Triplecaster reproductions, but you're talking about the specific one.
Right, sure. No, for sure. Because it's like, he has since passed, right? And now people are archiving his guitar by holding on to it and bidding millions of dollars on it, right? These are the fans that this takes time to build up because you need to have the memorabilia to do this. You need to have those specific experiences. You need to have the instruments that are iconic and synonymous with you. You look at Zakk Wylde's guitar and it's the fucking bullseye, the white bullseye with Gibson, Les Paul. I think it's a Les Paul. I think he uses a Gibson, but everybody knows that that's his guitar, right? And if he, God forbid he passes, it goes up for auction, somebody knows that I need to archive that, or I'm a huge fan of this. I need to collect what he had.
Or
right?
I want this as a status symbol to showcase that I'm able to buy this. I'm able to support at this level.
Some of these appreciate in value. Some of these things are legitimate assets because it's historically significant in time. So these are very interesting topics because it's like sometimes you buy a CD, you might not. It's not going to appreciate, most likely. You're probably going to sell it at a loss 90% of the time, unless CDs really come back. But you buy a guitar that somebody owned and that is like iconic, that will appreciate in value, you know?
So that's a very high-end example.
That is. Yes. But I want to make sure that's understood, though, because that's the longevity of this game, is doing that. And that's why I said either they're a fan of you and they outlast you as a fan, or they die as a fan because they are going to be a fan, you know? Yeah.
But let's kind of go back to the beginning. There's a way you can connect to that connector's mentality and serve this kind of fan base even before you potentially get through all the other things or get to that level without having to spend all this money. It just takes a little bit more time.
Yep.
For example, if you do sell physical media, if you do sell CDs and you have 1,000 of them made, you can offer them for $15 at your show, and then for $20 you can get one of 50 signed ones. The collector is going to want to get the signed one, and they'll pay that a little extra. Versus if you just have all the plain ones for 15, they're just going to buy a $15 one, or maybe they won't buy one at all. Having that as an option, something that's like slightly different, something that's a little more limited, a little more unique. I mean, we did a whole series on influence and that scarcity mindset. Collectors really touch into that, and FOMO and all
Big
that.
Time.
So there are things you can do to simply take advantage of that. Like, oh yeah, I've got all these t-shirts, but I've got 12 of them that are signed. Or, you know, hey, it's $50 for this hoodie. This hoodie is $80 and it was worn by the bassist during the performance today. Weird things like that. You can do to just take what you're normally doing, separate a little bit, make them a little different. Like, oh, these ones have this sticker on it as a design. This one, we have a couple of this different sticker design. Or just make them a little more unique, a little more limited, so you can cater to this this fan base without necessarily waiting for yourself to get to that high enough level to see it on a grand scale. You can start to do this on a small scale, and I highly recommend that you do take advantage of it.
You have to, because that's how everybody else started. You have to do it on a small scale first. And who knows that a signed copy of the CD, there might only be 10 in existence by the end of your career, right? I know I'm still thinking grand scheme, but you have to start somewhere. You have to have this memorabilia start somewhere along the line, and then it becomes significant because it outlasts everything.
Think of how cool that's going to be for the super fans down the road. I forget the name of the band. I feel bad about this, but our buddy Joe, who we had interviewed on a couple live podcasts, definitely check out those episodes. He also does work at a record store, and they got some records in, and all the album artwork, they made like 150 or 200 or whatever, and they were all given on blank sleeves, and the band drew the album art for all of the records. So each one is unique.
That's cool.
And they acquired a collection that happened to have one that was still sealed.
Wow.
So it was still, and it's just an incredibly valuable record because not only were there so little of them to begin with, not only is it new, but there are just so few of them. And the people who are really dedicated are willing to pay a lot because of that down the line.
That's like one of those things where there is no market. It's just what someone's willing to pay for that, because it's like you have 200 different versions or something like that. Each version's different. It's like, how much does this one sell for? I don't know. This one's different from all the other ones, so I have no clue, right?
And that allows you to separate what you're doing. There's no comparison there. So you can then charge potentially what you want to, because there is no direct competitor. There is nothing to directly compare it to. We're artists. Be creative. Do something unique to make it stand out that allows it to fulfill this role for this kind of fan, because they exist. And even if they're not necessarily fans of you, if they're a collector fan of like the local music scene and they come to one of your shows, they might want to buy one of these more expensive, more collector's things. Once again, kind of going back to earlier on how you have the passive listener, a passive listener who's a dedicated fan of somebody you're working with might monetarily affect you just because you so happen to be doing something with this other person.
Right.
A collector of a certain thing, you might be able to take advantage of that just because you also overlap with their interests. So being able to fulfill all of these different kinds of fans in some sort of way is just hugely beneficial.
Yep. Totally agree. Well said. Well said. That one's a lot of fun because like that one is just like I said, it takes a while to get here, but this one you can be the most creative with too. You know, like I just think that one's so cool, and
it really is.
I hope to be a fan of someone like that one day and look back and I mean not maybe own stuff, but like be like, wow, that was really cool, and you know really appreciate the different things that the band did or something. You know, but until then, until then,
one of my favorite things is whenever like I work with artists and then they release it afterwards and then they like give me a signed version or like a thank you letter or like something about that relates directly to the experience in the studio. I always love those things.
Because those are cool.
Because of that collector's thing, it's just like, man, this is one, it feels nice when people put that extra effort in, but two, it's like this, it's part of that collector's thing. It's unique. It's cool. This speaks more to the artist.
It feels more personal.
Yeah, and I like having those things in my studio.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's personal.
Yeah, and who knows? You know, if you're an archivist like this or a collector and you own a guitar that somebody sold off one day and they regret it, they might come reaching out to you, and you guys might become friends. And then there you go. You're friends with the artist. Seriously, weird things like that have happened. So that's a very unique stage. And it takes a while to get there. So,
crazy hypothetical.
But you got to start it sometime, right? Right? Because it can't happen. It can't happen.
Man, I ranted on this episode a lot more than I expected to. This is such a cool topic.
It's a good topic. It's a really good topic. A lot of people don't think of fans like this. And I think once you start breaking down the word fan, right? At any step of the way, this helps paint a clearer picture on what you need to do in your personal brand and your music.
And once again, this is not like these are the kinds of fans that exist, so you need to make something to take advantage of all of them. That's not what we're saying.
Right.
What we're saying is in any fan base, these fans exist within that fan base. So what can you do to not take advantage, but to offer up to better support, to better fulfill the wishes of that kind of fan and strengthen your fan base by actually fulfilling not just on the art, but on what each specific kind of fan is looking for when they come to you and your music.
Well said.
So, yeah. They all want to, like, in different ways, they support your career. How can you let them support you?
Yep.
Because that's what they want.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Well said. Well said.
That sounded so capitalist CEO of me right there.
It did, but that's okay.
True.
It's true.
But it's true.
It's true. That's
and it's a music business.
That's the world we live in. There's no sugarcoating it, you know? Music's great, but it's also a business.
Yep. You know what else is a business? Studio 222, where you can get some awesome mixing and mastering and recording
I knew
done.
you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Thank you, Sean. So if you do music or any kind of audio, I want to hear about your project. Go to my website, studio222recording.com. I'd love to hear more about what you're doing and maybe how I can help and see if we're a good fit for each other. And along the way, you can find out more about me, what I do on my website, and hear some of my previous work. And I know Sean also has a website that's pretty damn cool. He does some cool stuff too. You want to tell everybody about that?
Yeah, I also run a business. That is correct. And I also exchange goods and services for money.
Hell yeah. Capitalism.
Yeah, woo. If you are if you are a artist that does folk, rock, acoustic, I do blues occasionally, and need someone to remote mix and master, you can hit me up on my website. If you're in the area and you want to do some recording, you know my studio is always open to you. Once again, go to the website, swsrecordings.com. I also do one-on-one artist development, which is basically this podcast, but more specialized towards you and your music career. We audit your career, what steps need to be done next, what are some things that you are deficient in, are things you're overcompensating in, are things you're doing just right, to exponentially increase where you are and kind of just look at the forest when you're lost in the trees is the expression that I hear. So I'm going to use it to sound smart. But also, if you don't want to do that and you just want to enjoy the podcast and work on your career and yourself, obviously, check us out, Makers Cookbook.
Yeah.
We have social media platforms. We primarily do a lot on YouTube where we have specific shorts where we talk about industry news, different merch, different fun things, tutorials, things that are more expanded than just the podcast. If you want just the audio podcast, it's on any podcast platform out there. Yep. We also have Instagram. We don't have Twitter. but we do have Facebook.
Yep.
So you can check us on any of those platforms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Or email us at podcast@musicmakerscookbook.com if there are any episodes you would like us to cover in the future, or just want to kind of reach out and say hi and let us know what you're doing.
We'd love to hear from you.
So that all being said, thank you for being fans of us and getting through this whole episode. Thank you for enjoying this meal that we laid out and consumed and nom together. So with that being said, from our kitchen to yours.
Bon appetit.